Lewis Hine is an American sociologist and photographer who was born in 1874. He studied sociology at the University of Chicago, Columbia University, and New York University before becoming a professor. As a teacher, Lewis Hine encouraged his students to use photography to educate others on social issues. After leaving his teaching position, Hine became a photographer for the National Child Labor Committee. Hine began to use his own photography to advocate for social reform and, more specifically, changing child labor laws. His pictures were used in documentaries about the long working hours and dangerous working conditions children struggled with. These stories represented children as young as 6 years old. His images helped draw the public's attention to the problem with child labor. Often, Hine was mistreated by law enforcement because child immorality was hidden from the public and industries profited from child labor. Lewis Hine's photography was a threat to industries, which sometimes made it hard for him to take pictures. Hine traveled throughout the United States and kept a careful record of his conversations with the children he photographed. One of his well-known quotes is, "Photography can light up darkness and expose ignorance," which is exactly what he used his photography for. Some of his main techniques in his photography were his limited depth of field and shallow focus. This created images that had one aspect in focus and the rest of the image out of focus. This can be seen in his image called Noon. This image was taken in 1913 in Georgia and shows an 8-year-old boy working as a turner and looper without shoes in a dirty factory. The boy is in focus so the viewer can see his troubled expression, and the background is blurred because it is not the main focus. However, Hine purposely kept the entire background in the image because he wanted his viewers to see the working conditions the children were dealing with. Hine could be considered an ethically evaluative photographer because he used his photography to raise awareness. However, Hine considered himself to be an interpretive photographer due to the techniques he used. With the blurred backgrounds he incorporated in his images, it was up to the viewer to assume what was really going on. The questions that he made the viewers consider helped raise concern for the children working. When evaluating this image called Where the Sun Never Shines, taken in 1908, the viewer can see dark shadows emphasizing the depth of the mine these young boys had to work at. They worked for long hours without any light. Since this image is dark, the lights on the boys' hats stand out since that was their only form of light during the workday. This image called Tipple Boy shows an 11-year-old working in a coal mine in West Virginia. For this photograph, Hine used limited depth with a shallow focus technique. This image also uses diffused lighting because the light is evenly distributed, leaving no dark shadows. His use of this type of lighting allows the viewer to see all the details since there are no sharp shadows to distract them. Hine also uses black and white in order to remove the color distraction and give all focus to his subject. The viewer's full attention is brought to the boy, which gives meaning to the image. This picture can make a viewer upset because such a young child is covered in dark soot from working all day in a mine. In this image called Sea Urchin, Lewis Hine used a wide-angle lens to capture the surroundings. The boy in the picture was around boats all day at the harbor during school hours. He has no shoes on his feet and looks extremely exhausted. An interesting aspect of this image is the grown man in the background. Hine is very particular in the techniques he uses and his purpose in his backgrounds. The use of the man helps the viewer realize that this young boy is doing the same job as an adult. This is a well-shot picture by Hine because it brings emotion to the viewer since the child looks beaten up and tired from a long, hard day. Another photograph taken by Lewis Hine is called Brother Red, which was taken in 1915. This image shows two brothers who were newsies. From interviewing the boys, which was a big part of Hine's photography journey, he found out that they were only 9 and 7 years old and delivered papers all day without shoes. The haunting faces of the boys and their bare feet are the central focus of this image. The viewer can see blurred men with shoes in the background, giving greater emphasis to the fact that these young boys have nothing on their own feet. The boys are dirty and look worn down. Many children during this time were forced to work up to 12 hours at a time. Again, the black and white technique is used so that the viewer is not distracted by colors. The main focus is on the condition of the children. Hine's interpretive photography allows viewers to really think about the different effects child labor has on children. Each viewer may see or feel something different when looking at these images. However, the main goal of Lewis Hine's work is still the same, and that is to advocate for these young kids, which also makes him ethically evaluative. After working hard for years, Hine made a significant impact, and child labor laws were put into place in 1938.